Paul Zach, how wonderful to see you.
Thank you, Arthur.
Can you start by introducing yourself to our learners?
Sure. So I'm a behavioral neuroscientist and economist, and I study human connection. So why humans cooperate, how they cooperate, and what happens in the brain to allow us to live together, work together, have relationships.
Why, Paul, did humans evolve to care about happiness?
It seems unusual because the normal view in evolution is that nature is red in tooth and claw, as Tennyson said, right? So we're struggling to survive, and the metric that tells us we are successful evolutionarily is grandchildren. I produce enough children who are high enough quality that they had children. So how do we balance that struggle for survival with our obsession with happiness? So it turns out in the last 20 years, scientists have made a lot of progress to reconcile those two views, the struggle for survival versus being happy. And the traditional view is that evolution doesn't care if you're happy, it just cares if you reproduce. So the solution to that is that individuals who are happier are more attractive as spouses, and they actually produce children who are more likely to get married and have children themselves. So happy people are people we want to be around as friends, as romantic partners. They live longer and they live healthier. So there's a real evolutionary or biological reason why we should be obsessed with happiness, because happy people are more successful evolutionarily.
So tell us about how the study of neuroeconomics has helped you discover the function and the role of oxytocin.
Neuroeconomics measures brain activity while people make decisions, and the decisions that economists had trouble predicting were strategic decisions. So when I've got to coordinate with you, I've got to figure out what I should do, and you're trying to figure out what I should do. So these strategic decisions are poorly predicted by the standard economic models. So we began looking at brain function that allowed us to identify why I cooperate with you or why I have a conflict with you. And the cooperation side, we developed a protocol to measure this brain chemical oxytocin, and showed over the course of about 20 years that oxytocin is a key signaling molecule that tells us that this stranger I'm interacting with appears to be trustworthy or safe. And it does that by having a downstream set of effects on the brain and body. In particular, it reduces stress responses that we have from being around others. And so now we have a mechanism that says, oh, this person looks safe to be around. I can grab the value of interacting with him or her to cooperate, work on a project, fall in love, whatever those things are, and other people I should be more wary of. So we know a lot about the mechanisms of fear and stress, but before we started developing this protocol to measure oxytocin, the kind of good side of human behavior, why we connect, why we care about others, why we sacrifice to help strangers, that really wasn't well understood because the brain mechanisms that induce that were not well characterized.
So what exactly is oxytocin?
So it's an ancient chemical that's made in the brainstem, well outside conscious awareness, that traditionally has been associated with these hallmarks of mammals. Childbirth, breastfeeding, so it initiates all of that in the peripheral nervous system. But in the brain, what we showed is that it has these profound effects on allowing us to be social creatures. So when we look at the neuroanatomy of the human brain, we have the kind of neuroanatomy that we see in social living creatures, social living animals. In particular, we have many receptors for oxytocin in our frontal cortex that allows us to be super sensitive unconsciously to social signals. So what it means to be a social creature is that we thrive around others. And we can do that because we are acutely sensitive to the signals that we're getting from those around us. We don't have to think about it. We intuit very easily who we want to be around, who we want to associate with, and who we want to avoid. The value of that from a happiness perspective is that we know that being embedded in community is one of those factors that increases our life satisfaction. So how do we do that so naturally? Right, think of a cocktail party that you go to. You can meet someone right away and go, wow, this guy's great, or this lady's great. I want to hang out with this person just as a friend or an interesting person. So how do we do that? We have to have a mechanism in the brain and this larger network that oxytocin activates, which increases our sense of empathy. So now I'm a much better social creature if I understand why you care about something that you're doing or talking about, not just intuiting that, oh, you must be working on something cognitively. I have a sense of emotional connection to you. And again, that emotional connection is very valuable because it creates more effective social animals.